Squishies, back again with another vlog. This is Thundercats, the 1985 series. Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2, Exodus and the Unholy Alliance. So, I've been commissioned over the next couple months to watch the first 2 episodes each of 1985 Thundercats, 2011 Thundercats, and the new Thundercats Ho. I don't know Thundercats. I was more of a Silverhawks kid. So I never really watched it that much. I was aware of it. I probably saw episodes of it here and there. But, you know, it aired when I was 4 to 6. That's the time period it was airing in. What I did see of it, I don't remember. Which is for the best, because, how do I put this delicately? It sucks. I haven't watched the 2011 one or Thundercats Ho. Those are coming in later months, like I said. But the 1985 series? Garbage. Which, honestly, isn't that surprising. Most children's cartoons of the era were garbage. It was the nadir of American animation. The whole industry was in the toilet. People were working under sweatshop conditions. Budgets were nil. Content controls imposed by advertisers and parents groups were incredibly tight. There really wasn't any space in which to create anything good. So, American cartoons of the 70s and 80s mostly suck. It's just the nature of the beast. Didn't stop it from being popular. Kids are not necessarily the most discerning of viewers. They're not undiscerning, but what they're looking for tends to be a little more idiosyncratic, a little bit less directly related to quality than what adults tend to enjoy in a show. So, yeah, not a good show. I was greatly distracted from the earliest bits by trying to figure out if the characters were wearing any clothes or not, because it was honestly hard to tell whether they were just wearing belts and nothing else, or had, like, shorts or leotards on of some kind, but that were super skin tight. As it turns out, they were, in fact, not wearing clothes, which is a choice. And we know they weren't wearing clothes because the old dude, Jaga, magically creates clothes for them. Ooh. For reasons. Because they will need them at their destination that they don't know yet where that is. He dies because it's 1985. You have to have a blue, ghostly, dead mentor in your, space fantasy. Star Wars said so. The evil mutants are unmotivated and generic bad guys. The main characters are largely devoid of personality. Really, the only one we get to know at all in the first 2 episodes, the only ones we get to know are Snarf and Lion-O, both of whom are really annoying and obnoxious. Especially Snarf. So, not much to go on there. The second episode we saw the introduction of what I know is the main villain, Mum-Ra, because reasons. He wants the sword that the main character has, so he destroys the ship carrying all the evil mutants except the 3, because I guess he wants a small enough group of minions that he can control. But if he could wipe out the ship that easily, couldn't he just wipe out the Thundercats? I know incompetent villains were kind of a thing in the period, and I get why, because if you're going to have a recurring villain that appears episode after episode after episode after episode and always stick to the same one, and if you're going to have, stakes that are high, that, he's going to conquer the world or kill the heroes or whatever, he has to keep losing. Therefore, he has to be incompetent. And I've seen very few shows get around this problem successfully. Young Justice does a good job with it. In the first season, it gets a little annoying towards the end, but the villains of the first season, the Light, are very, very good at having contingency plans. So the heroes get their victory, and then at the end of the episode, we get the Light saying, well, okay, they got us there, but we still have this other victory that they don't even know about. They stopped us from achieving our A objective, but they never even noticed our B objective. And that allows the villains to keep building their scheme and slowly working their way toward victory while still having contained episodes in which the heroes can have an adventure and win. But that's a much more sophisticated kind of storytelling that kind of requires a willingness to carry an ongoing story from episode to episode, which shows largely just didn't have in the 80s. For the very good reason that home video barely existed. So there was no way to rewatch old episodes. No reliable way. There was just reruns. So you could not rely on people knowing what happened. That's pretty much what caused the shift. Also, because of that tight control of children's television in particular by advertisers and parent groups, it meant you had such conditions you had to work within that there was a lot of recycling of concepts and situations and so forth, because it was known that those worked. And it wasn't worth putting together an episode just to have the advertisers refuse. To have the advertisers come in and say, well, you have to change it because it's not toyetic enough. Or you have to change it because this might offend this important portion of our consumer base. And you have the parents groups coming in and saying, well, you can't do that because, all cartoons have to be made for the comfort of the smallest possible children. If it contains anything that a 4-year-old would find upsetting and disturbing, then you can't do it because the parents groups complain. So nothing that questions authority, nothing that has moral ambiguity, nothing that, suggests anything other than the dominant religious beliefs, or at least no real-world religious beliefs other than, Christianity. That kind of thing was kind of imposed by that hyper-conservative combination of advertisers worried about their buyers and parents groups worried about their children. And so, for example, I noticed in this episode, or in the first episode rather, the characters never actually hit anyone with their weapons. Pathro got some nunchucks, which is amazingly 1985, and just hung them around his neck. Did not use them. Chitara had that stick out, never hit anybody with it, just parried. Lion-O never actually hits anyone with his sword, etc., etc. Because, if you hit people with weapons, then later when the children in the playground are playing Thundercats, they're going to hit each other with sticks, and then you'll get an angry parent. More importantly, it's just that, it's boring. Very little happens in these two episodes. There's a lot of very repetitive, very stiff animation, very static backgrounds, and a lot of talking between, which is not a big deal. That can work. Doctor Who has built 50 years of television on high concept setups that culminate in two actors in a room talking to each other. But that requires A, good dialogue, and B, good acting, neither of which is particularly on display here. So really what you just get is nothing. Nothing happening. But then when there is action, it's not very good. The fight between Mumra and Lion-O consists of Mumra dodging until Lion-O falls over. And that's it. And then he goes to strike the killing blow and sees his reflection in Lion-O's shield and runs away. It's not, exciting or sophisticated. The way the characters move is very minimal. It doesn't tell us anything about them the way that there are cartoons with amazingly well done action sequences, like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood or Avatar: The Last Airbender, where the way characters move in action sequences, the choices they make, you can see what they're doing and why, and in turn that gives you insight into the character and how the character thinks. It becomes part of their characterization. That's not at all on display here because, again, these are being animated under basically sweatshop conditions. So yeah. Like most stuff from the 80s, most children's cartoons from the 80s, it's a bad show that gets remembered positively because of nostalgia. The same way as, other bad shows remain with us because of nostalgia. That's why G.I. Joe is still a thing. That's why Transformers are still a thing. These were crappy shows from the 80s. He-Man. Terrible shows. My understanding is that some of the later Transformers shows were pretty good. I've never watched any of them. I watched the original one as a kid and hated it. Like, even as a kid, it was so bad that even my unsophisticated kid tastes were like, this is crap. But people don't remember the shows that they watched when they were 4. They remember, or 6, Once you start getting into like 8, 10, that range, then people start actually remembering the shows somewhat. But younger than that, And what you're remembering isn't the show. You're remembering how the show made you feel. You're remembering the games you played on the playground. By and large, you are not remembering the show. And that's very much, I think, what drives these shows being constantly brought back. Now, is there potential here? Maybe. Maybe the 2011 show is good. I don't know. I'll be finding out next month, I guess. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, gaming videos, and more. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye!